Does it feel, President Trump was just saying that the evacuation efforts, emergency efforts were very well coordinated. Does it feel that way in Florida?
It does. Yeah, for the most part, they were. They started early. They got a lot of people out of the Miami and Fort Lauderdale area out a couple of days ago. In fact, I've seen quite a number of them here in Orlando, which is more or less in the middle of the state. They got a slower start on the West Coast because, as you know, initially we were thinking that the hurricane, all the models, well, not all of them, but most of the models suggested that the hurricane would track up the east coast of Florida. Instead, it hugged the northern coast of Cuba before turning northward and hitting the Keys, the Florida Keys, early this morning. And now it's about 25 kilometers as of 8 p.m. Eastern time. So just a few minutes ago, Betty, it's about 25 kilometers east-northeast of Fort Myers, which is still considerably southwest of where I am in Orlando, but it is making its way up the coast. The wind speeds have slowed to about 165 kilometers per hour, which is about 105 miles per hour. But the storm is moving faster, which may be a good thing ultimately, pushing its way up the coast and not sort of sitting in place and dredging this part of the state with even more rain that it's otherwise going to get.
Erik, in terms of the economic fallout, the damage, it's very much a movable feast with these guesstimates, if you will. Enki Research, the latest one to sort of cut down that damage to $49 billion. What are we expecting? What have we seen so far in terms of the damage, some of the impact on the data, and in terms of Florida clearly being a key agricultural state as well?
The principal crop growing areas haven't been affected yet. That has yet to come. Southern Florida, as you may know, is largely the Everglades. So if you go west from Miami and Fort Lauderdale, you're into what is effectively the tropical bush. We know that Miami has been inundated by a substantial storm surge and winds pushing that water around. We've all seen that video today, so there's undoubtedly some significant damage in Miami, and there are lots of people in that part of the state who've lost power. The Florida Keys, which is a small part of the state, but which has some high-value property and certainly some hotels in Key West, sustained catastrophic damage. And until daylight tomorrow, it's going to be difficult for anybody to come up with a reasonable assessment. The same goes for southwestern Florida. Marco Island, which is just above the Everglades, Naples and Fort Myers have all been slammed this afternoon by wind. That was still a Category 3 storm when it was in the Naples area. And it's probably only now that the storm surge, which may end up being the most devastating and damaging part of the storm, is hitting that part of the Florida coast. So what tends to happen, Heidi, is that as this storm moves north, the winds lead the storm, the wind and the rain leads the storm, and then the storm surge comes in behind. And if the storm surge arrives in conjunction with high tide, which is what is expected to happen in the Tampa Bay area, it could be that much more damaging. That's when you get the water pushing much further inland than it might otherwise because it's combined with a high tide. That's what Tampa is really worried about. A Category 2 storm may not do that much damage to buildings in Tampa, but the flooding from the storm surge, certainly could.